Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel of crafting, crochet and knitting, and for today, also spinning. My name is Nikki and welcome to my little yarniverse. Hi! Slightly different angle today because I'm set up at the desk hoping to use my new e-spinner. So, background to this is that at a yarn show I bought this drop spindle set from Adelaide Walker, and it had grey Jacob, it had brown Shetland and white Blueface Leicester wools in it, wool bats in it to use with the drop spindle, except I was finding it a little bit challenging to use the drop spindle and was not making a lot of progress. And of course my purse got ahead of my capability and I went and bought a whole bunch more bats to spin up, thinking, yeah, this will be amazing and I'll use the drop spindle to spin, and it didn't happen. So we have finally been able to get hold of an e-spinner. This is what it looks like. And this is the Dreaming Robots something Nano. It's like the known one for e-spinning, right? So if you just give a quick Google, you'll find it. One thing I'm finding is it's got these little like feet to try and stick it to the table, and it is not working on my desk, so there might be some adjustments made. Now, I was going to show you the entire process of me learning how to use this, except that I was having a lot of issues when I was literally just assembling it and trying to get like the basics working. So I'm really glad I didn't record that. Like, glad, because like it would have been a very tricky thing to edit to have so much going wrong. But I suppose it's bad I didn't record it, because now you don't get to see like the authentic experience, but like it was me and what I was doing. So I was using the grey Jacob yarn. This is a little bit of that I've got left. Just because it was a bit tufty and I didn't want to spin that. And you can see that I have already spun these. I've got a slightly chunkier version here. You can see how really thick that has been done. That was me as I was trying to get used to what on earth was going on with this e-spinner and my issues, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then I actually did make some that was a little bit thinner. You can kind of see that it's thinner by the end there. So yes, I enjoyed that. I need to actually like just wind those up into some balls of yarn and weigh how much I've actually got there, because it's so thick. I really don't think I'm going to have a lot of yardage on it, but it was an experiment, and I'm basically going to say what it is that I was having trouble with. So let me unplug this just so that I can hold it up to you for now. I'm trying to use the yarn ball to hold it in place so that it's not got any like weight trying to pull it off the table. So what we've got is we've got the drive band, the orifice, the flyer, bobbin, and then on this side we've got the tension. And what was really key, I think, because I hadn't appreciated this properly before, which is, you know, strange of me because I'm a physicist, I should have appreciated this, but as these are spinning around together, if there's no difference in the speed between the bobbin's rotation and the flyer rotation, then the yarn isn't going to actually start going on the bobbin, because they're just going to move around together and stay like this the whole time. So I was having trouble with what's called uptake, so that is that yarn being pulled onto the bobbin. There's this tension line here, which is designed to make the bobbin have some tension that like provides some restriction that will mean it goes around at a different rate than the flyer. The old design, I think, just had a knot underneath a bit of plastic around here, but we've got this spring, and as I was pulling that tighter and tighter because I wasn't getting any uptake, I was really worried about like how much I was pulling the string. So if you are worrying about on your new version how much you're tauting the spring, sorry, I've had it so that the spring's actually like extended even to like here before, to get the uptake that I needed. I don't know if that is normal, I can't comment on that, but it has been really very tight in order to get any uptake. And the other thing was me and my technique, right? So I was holding on to the yarn like out here and really just like not, I thought just letting it go it would be pulled in, but actually I needed to sort of kind of just about push it up a bit as I'm moving it. So that was just like me and not knowing how to draft with it. So you'll see me doing that properly, I suppose. properly in this video. So speed wise, I'm using a fairly medium-ish setting, and then I'm sure most videos online say this, but I'm going to start with my singles in a Z twist, and then I'll flick this switch later to ply using S twist, and that's just the direction that it's being spun in. I think like that's maybe the easiest thing. That's the thing that people in the videos are always talking about, because they're talking about like making sure that you're plying that you're spinning one way and then you're plying the other way. It doesn't really matter which way, as long as they are different to each other, because it will give you a better strength of yarn. But I think for me, the tension has actually been the tricky thing, because you can't really, I don't think you can really easily teach the tension. Like everyone does this sort of like ping on it and then says, oh, you know, it's fairly loose or whatever, but when I had it at about the looseness that it looked like on someone else's screen, it wasn't doing anything. So mine is really quite tight, and I thought maybe showing you the spring position, at least on mine, would be better. Obviously that's going to depend on the length of yarn as well, not yarn, sorry, the length of string providing the tension. But I guess I'm just doing my best to show you everything I can think of if you're like a complete beginner. I'm not a spinner. I'm doing this for the first time too, can you tell? So yeah, don't come to me for wisdom. I'm doing my best. It's good to have this connection. In fact, I've put this here, but it's not close enough for me to plug that in. This is really handy. It's got an extension on it that whips it round to my plug socket at least, to out of the way, and it's just plugged into a standard USB connection. So I'm trying not to get caught in my chair. That's exactly the reason why I've got it under a yarn bowl over here. And then I'm gonna prep some more yarn. So I mentioned that this is the Grey Jacob. The next one in here is my brown Shetland. Yeah, my brown Shetland. So I'm not even sure how much there is of this. Let me see if the notes say anything about it. I've got no idea how much this is here, and I've put my scales away. So I'm gonna first half it. I see everybody doing this to make things easier, especially because I'm terrible at drafting right now, so I'm gonna make my life as easy as possible by removing half the problem. But also because if I want to ply my yarn later, then I'm gonna have to work some of this onto a separate bobbin anyway, so that's about half. I'm gonna just trust to that being about right for my second bobbin and put that to one side. And then I'm further going to divide this up, so I'm actually going to try and split this in half in the middle here, just so that I don't have as much trailing. And then I'm gonna split this in half again, so that I'm really working with like a thin bit. And then the really useful thing I saw on another video was to like just give this a tug and see how long this bit is. So that's really quite short. I mean, I'm sure there are shorter, but that's going to affect my drafting, because I need to make sure that I'm not pulling this much out all the time, because I'll potentially pull out a whole staple and then snap the yarn. I want to probably just be pulling like a little bit at a time. I'll try that. Let's see how we go. So what I'm also going to do is very, very carefully pre-draft. Now, a lot of spinners that I've seen have been like, oh, you don't need to do this. I'm rubbish at drafting. So loosening it up ever so gently right now is saving me a lot of time later, saving me a lot of stopping and starting and a lot of clumpy bits. So I am going to pre-draft, and you can see now why I split it in half lengthways as well, because that's not going to dangle quite a lot. But it's just a bit finer, so when I draft, everything's not really sticky to each other, because the more fibres that are in here, the more that they are clumping to each other, and I've just not been very good at working with that. So I've pre-drafted, and I'm just going to try and tug a little bit out the front, and I'm going to pop that through my leading yarn, and I'm really going to attempt to get going on this. I've already sort of wrecked the leading yarn quite a bit with my issues with the tension and the uptake, because every time I start spinning this, it starts like moving. I think the other problem that there you go, it's already split. The other problem I maybe have is it trying to fit through the hooks when it's so clumped up. So we'll see how we go. Try and keep it a bit thinner maybe. And let's start. Power first. I feel like getting started is the trickiest part, so let's go. Oh. Case in point. We just needed a little bit more twist going into that to get it going. So you can see I'm also like trying to move it up a bit. And is that going on my wheel? It is, it's going on the wheel. Aha. Make that a bit thick. So I would love to spin nice and thin, because the yarn I am really looking to use is fingering weight yarn, and I'm probably actually spinning this way too tightly, which is something I will fix in future. Right now my drafting is the problem, so we're just trying to learn how to do that properly. You can see like I keep like letting it come up into my fibre where I shouldn't be letting it come up. So everyone talks about this drafting triangle, and I get the general principle, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't think I could explain it well enough to you. But I'm trying to keep the twist near the top, so everything is nice and loose at the bottom here, so that I can actually pull it, because the second that the twist gets into this bottom bit here, I'm not going to be able to pull it, because the twist is what gives it the strength. This is going a lot more successfully than the previous one. I've definitely learned a lot of lessons already. I feel bad now, because if I'd have recorded the previous one, you'd have seen just how badly I was doing, and we could have worked on it together. It's surprising how few fibres you need to get those more typical, those more typical sizes of yarn that we're used to. Those like even this is probably going to come out of DK, because this is reasonable in and of itself, but this is probably like a fingering weight just by itself, and it's only the first ply, so you'd have to spin so thin. And I don't know if from there you can see like quite how few fibres I'm letting through, and this is by no means going to be consistent either, right? Like, I am enjoying this a lot better. I don't even know actually whether this is going to be like mostly because of the change in fibre, because it could just be that this is a fibre that suits me better, she says, making a mistake, than the previous one I was working with. So I was working with the Jacob before, I'm now working with the Shetland. So it could be that the length of these fibres just works better for how I currently draft, because I don't know if because I'm a beginner or just because I'm not very good at it. Ooh. Okay, that came out a bit thick. Right, I'm going to reset here a bit. So I'm getting a little bit of twist in here, which is making this a bit difficult, and I'm getting a few clumps. But also I've got a lot of yarn currently on here. I'm going to just tug one of the hooks down here a little bit more, so it's going to start wrapping around here instead now. I'm going to pull this down a bit and give myself a bit of room to work. And again, there's a little bit of twist in here, not a lot, but enough for me to unravel it a bit. So I've got a bit of thickness there. Right, here we go again. Oh, I've done that quite thick. Putting quite a bit of this spin out into the. So what I'm finding is you don't want to let go of this pinch part, because if you let go of the pinch part, then it travels, the twist travels into the rest of the fibre. I'm recovering a lot better actually as well from this as well. I'm making a few mistakes, but I'm not getting nearly as many clumps as I was with the Jacob. Like, I'm definitely getting thicker bits, but they are nowhere near as bad as the bits I was coming out with in the Jacob. And I think this is sliding nicer. So as I'm tugging it and trying to keep out the weight, it's just, it doesn't feel like it's getting a bit like messy and knotty like the Jacob was getting. Oh, I'm worried about that bit. I'll let that get a little bit too thin. So what I found with the Jacob though is that this is already so much easier and so much thinner, so much better than the drop spindle. I mean, it is thinner than the drop spindle as well, but I can actually sit here and do this and get through all of those bats that I've been buying myself a lot more successfully than I would ever have done with the drop spindle. I would have been here for literally months with the drop spindle. And this is just as therapeutic, I think. I mean, it's maybe a bit more high-tech and the noise is a little bit annoying, but I don't know, like in a weird way, the noise is also rhythmic. Okay, I need to stop that there and move my knot again. I'm just going to tuck that down. Okay, don't want to lose too many fibres. Let some of that spin in. There. Oh, really. Okay, and be careful not to let the weight of the bat pull and like separate itself. Okay, so I think this is an example of where I was drafting really like the wrong length there, because I was starting to like pull out the length of the fibre and then I'd get a thick bit and a thin bit, so I need to try and avoid that. You know, I was getting so frustrated with this yesterday evening when I was taking a look at it. And I can't believe I've gone from that like total frustration with it to really quite enjoying this. I've been in a place recently where my knitting has felt a bit like a chore and not mindful and not restful. Not to the point of not wanting to do it, but wondering about my creativity and feeling like my ideas aren't really flowing with it, and struggling to find time and feeling on a tight schedule with making sure that I can work through some of my stash by the end of the year. And I've got lots of yarn bats in stash as well, so if I can just take a pause and do some spinning, I think that's going to be really healthy. Okay, I'm sort of getting to the end here now. That's a bit, oh, that's a bit too thick, never mind. I'm going to have to leave enough to join the next part, and I'm going to have to pre-draft the next part. So I'm actually going to stop that there. And then there's a lovely little thing here to just notch there to just tie it in place. So here is what we have so far. I can move my hook, I think, and weave a little bit more into that gap there to try and keep things nice and even on the bobbin. You can hear that the sound of it really isn't too aggressive. You can see that that's moving around. I don't know if that is the suckers or if that's my desk. But yeah, so we've got this bit next. So this was the other half of that. I'm going to give this a little few gentle tugs. Pre-draft this out a bit. You'll see it's got a little bit thin there. So the pre-drafting, I think some people probably say not to do it because you don't want to pull out all of your staple like that. But I'm hopefully trying to put a bit of pressure on different parts of the bat, sliding them along each other a little bit rather than anything being particularly untucked. And then I'm going to try and eke that bit up to the front. So I don't need to join it yet. It's there ready. So we go again. This join is probably going to be a bit messy, but as long as it stays joined, I'm not too worried. A little faster. Maybe that was too fast. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too fast there. That's going to be a bit of a wiggly bit, but never mind. Okay. I'm going to start inching that bobbin that way a bit. Oh, okay, right, we lost that bit. So we're going to have to unravel that and pull it back through the orifice. And it's lost some of its spin. Yeah, it's lost a lot of its spin there. And I'll tie that higher up actually, see if we can't get it. It'll be a bit thick, but a little fast for me. That might be a bit too high twist. Loosen here for a bit. Not too much. Okay, try again. There's a speed just in between the two of those that's not quite getting. I'm either going too slow or too fast. Is I'm trying to get it to sit in that bit there. I'm stopping and starting, I'm getting a few inconsistencies cropping in. A drafting triangle is less of a drafting triangle and more of a square. I've got a bit of a knob in there. I think it's going quite well. I've now got to sort this out. So why don't I continue spinning this up and get back to you when I've finished the bobbins and when we're ready to ply. Okay, so we have done this much fibre so far. We split this bat in half at the start. This is one half, and the other half is now all on here. So I am going to flip the switch so that it's actually turned off for the time being, and then I've just got myself a little thing of tape so that when I take this off I can tape the end down to here and just lock it in place whilst we are faffing around and ready to do the next one. So the only problem is, in order to take this off, in order to do the next bobbin, I have to loosen the tension, which means I might not get it back in the same place again. So I'm just taking a little look at where it is at the moment so that I can maybe get it in the right place again. So the spring is just sort of like all the way up to the top of the frame here, so I'm going to loosen that off now and pop that down there. I'm going to take the belt, drive belt as well, which is elasticated. I'm going to pull that out the way. It is going to be over this, but I'll deal with that in just a second. It's currently locked in place down here, and then it just lifts off. So we lift it off here, we lift it off there. Now I pull this and try and keep hold of this as much as possible. This bearing slides off. That bearing should slide off. That is I just launched it under the table somewhere. There we go. So this bearing, and then we're going to slide the bobbin off our flyer. Doesn't want to come off easily, so I am going to pull this yarn through and unhook it just to be on the safe side, and wind it up a bit more so I can hold it there, and then hopefully pull. There we go. Just don't have enough hands to do this. I'm trying to do it carefully so I don't go breaking that flyer, but the result was that I wasn't able to detach it at all. So I'm going to stick this down to here with a bit of tape. Oh, trust me to immediately get the tape stuck to my finger. Okay, that's totally not tidy, but it does the job. So here we are. I think that apart from at the very end where I felt like I was making a few lumps and bumps happen, I mean you can even see them actually, you can see there are big bits here and then thin bits here. So is it focusing on me when I want it to focus on the bobbin? So yeah, that's not so great. But earlier on in the process, I was fairly sure I was doing a reasonable job. So that is now one, that is a single. That's got half of our stuff on it, half our fibre on it. And now I just need to be able to do a similar like thickness when I do this one, so that I have roughly the same amount, so that when I apply them together that they apply together nicely. Now I actually did have it with this grey Jacob here that I had more on one bobbin than the other, so I did just unwind the last bit and then let it spin back into itself. And just secure it with a bit of spinning. So it's possible to work around it, and I will do that if I have to, but it'll make my life easier if I do actually just match the thickness when I do this. So we're doing pretty good today, because I've not been spinning consistently, but I have done this and this. These are actually plied, so these are, I've done the majority of my bat as two singles of my Jacob, and then plied them together, and I've so far done one half of my Shetland bat as well, and that has basically taken, I think looking at the timestamps on the video, that's basically taken me an hour to do. So if that takes me another hour and then applying takes another hour, that's pretty reasonable. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to getting that done. I think I'm going to make the most of the natural light whilst I have it, and I'll come back when it's time to apply. So as you can see, this video is getting a little bit long, so I've decided to split it up into two parts. We have already been spinning half of the bat, and we're going to be looking at plying and also balling up our yarn in the next episode, so stay tuned. Some things I realised that I didn't mention during this video are like the differences between just all the different qualities, I suppose, of spinning from what I've learnt. Someone with a spinning video can probably tell you a lot more about this. But so like, for example, I was really focusing on my drafting in this video because I was really struggling to slide those fibres over each other. So what you've got in a bat is absolutely loads of fibres of wool that are lined up next to each other. They've been something called carded, so they've actually been like brushed into a nice straight line, and they should slide across each other as you are drafting, but this is wool, and so wool is toothy, it likes to stick to itself, so I was finding at times I was really having to give it some pull to actually get it to slide up, and of course if I did that too much I would then break my yarn, so I was being very tentative about doing that, but then that meant that I ended up with too thick yarn in places, so I was really focusing on that aspect. That's the drafting aspect, and the way that you draft is dependent on how long those fibres of wool are. But the other thing that I wasn't really paying attention to at this stage and did catch me off guard in the plying, so I guess I'll talk more about it there, is the actual quantity of the spin itself. So in my kit there's a little card that helps you to measure what degree of spin you have. So I think it's the case that the more you spin it, the higher the degree will be, because the twist will lay, so if your yarn is going that way, the twist will lay across it more. So there's like an angle to how much twist is in your yarn. And then also the S and the Z twist. So the S and the Z twist I think are spoken about a lot in spinning and plying videos, so I won't talk too much about that. That's really just about whether it's been spun clockwise or anti-clockwise. But and you would spin one way and ply the other. But that percentage of twist, the more twist you have in your fibre, and this applies to both your single and to your plied yarn, there's a natural degree that the yarn wants to sit at in terms of its twist, and if you under twist it then it could snap because you don't have enough tension in the fibre to have that toothiness to hold it together. If you have too much twist, it wants to ply back on itself. So if you've got a strand of yarn in front of you that you're holding in place and you're holding it taut, it's going to look straight. But if you bring your hands in slightly, it should just bow. It should just dip in the middle. But if in the process of dipping it starts to wrap around itself, it's too highly spun. That is my current problem. I've not got the knack of how much twist to put into my fibre yet, so I do have that problem in the next video. So those are just like some of the qualities around it, and then I've heard all sorts as well about when you start getting into the colour that you have, it's really easy to see how you might be spinning things not at the same tension the whole time, or not at the same thickness the whole time, and so when you ply them together the colour doesn't line up properly. So for that you then have this it goes back to that drafting. So if you draft something too thickly, then it takes up more of the fibre. So if it takes up more of the fibre and if you're working with colour and you're trying to get it lined up, then you need both plies to be a similar thickness, because if you have one thick and one thin, then you use more of your fibre and you get through your colour stripes quicker in the thicker yarn than you do in the thinner. So whilst this is not a problem for me right now with colour, because I'm not using colour, it is kind of a problem for me when it comes to how much yarn is on my bobbin for plying up, and when it comes to plying together yarns of different thicknesses, because that just makes things complicated when it comes to
the thick yarn doesn't take the twist as easily as the thin yarn, and so it might be underplied, underspun. But then when I also ply it, it's not taking as much twist in the plying either, so it might not come apart at that point, but it might not be the strongest yarn compared to where two consistently spun pieces have been plied together. So I'm sure there's like people on the internet who can tell you a lot more about that with spinning, but as a beginner, like, I think it's quite intimidating how many things that could be going wrong. and I think like maybe most spinners learn to spin with someone showing them, and I don't have that. I'm not close enough to a yarn community to be able to have one-to-one sessions with somebody, so I'm trying my best to learn off of videos on the internet, and documenting all of this in case any of you are a beginner and you're struggling with the same things and you don't have a yarn community in person to go to as well. So I've chosen to focus on the drafting first, because if I can get that drafting right, then I bring in that consistency that means that my thickness and my thinness of my singles and how they apply together will be fixed. And then I'm going to try and work on how much I'm spinning them together. I think you can try to spin thicker bits more, but I suppose there's always still a risk that that is going to then travel into your thin yarn once you release that part of your drafting triangle. So I don't think that's the easy solution. I think consistency is key to begin with, and then we'll go from there. So having spoken a little bit more about that in this video, and hopefully speaking a little bit more about it in the next one, you'll maybe be more aware now when you watch the next video of where you see that overspinning happening, where you see things flying upon themselves, and the problems that I was having. So stay tuned for the second part of this video where I attempt to ply my yarn. For now, have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Bye! I'm back again. Here is a bonus clip. So obviously I've been focusing the majority of this video and my next video on using the e-spinner for the first time, but I did say that I had a drop spindle, and back when I was trying to do a spinning video for the first time, I was going to record all of my endeavours on the drop spindle before I realised quite how badly I was doing. So here are a couple of little clips of me using the drop spindle pretty atrociously in an attempt to make some yarn. Here you go. So as you can see, I am struggling with the drop spindle. The way you're supposed to do this is that you're supposed to spin the drop spindle, let it go, and it will spin under gravity while you draft your yarn and allow that twist from it spinning under gravity to travel into your fibres. Except that my drafting at this point is truly terrible, and I cannot draft and get the spin right from the drop spindle at the same time. My yarn would be breaking all over the place, it would be a disaster. So my solution, which the person I spoke to at the Adelaide water stand when I first bought this was showing me, is that you can just put the spin into the spindle and then wedge it either under your arm, between your legs, and that spin will stay there until you release the point of your drafting circle. So whilst it's stationary, you can draft, get the fibres into the position that you want them to be in, and then you can let the spin travel up the draft, and you just have to be careful that you don't let that spin travel too far up. So once you have let it, that particular portion of spin travel up into your drafting triangle, you then have a new triangle, you need to apply new spin, and you repeat the process again. So that's what I'm doing in this video. I would say that benefits of a drop spindle, much cheaper than either the e-spinner, or like way cheaper than a full-blown spinning wheel. So it's quite accessible if you just want to have a go. However, it takes longer. Maybe someone who has worked out how to do the spin and drop would get through this quicker than I, but it's still not as fast as an e-spinner, or probably not as fast as a proper spinning wheel. So it depends what you want out of your spinning experience. If you want something that is pretty slow, that is pretty mindful, and you're just in it to have a go, then sure, go for a drop spindle kit. If you actually want to start spinning a ball of yarn that is usable, then I would suggest going for the e-spinner or a spinning wheel. Obviously this is going to cost you more money, but it is going to be faster, and if you're a beginner it's going to let you spin that yarn up quicker and actually be able to experience knitting with your yarn if that's what you want out of your spinning experience instead.